Welcome everybody, I'm JD.
And I'm Gail.
Sneakee Bastard 1 here.
Be Sneakee Bastard 2.
And we have an interesting show for you today. As most of you all have been watching the news and looking out your windows, you notice that America is on fire. Riots everywhere. So we thought we'd do a show.
There are demonstrations?
Okay, I'm sorry. Peaceful demonstrations everywhere. So we thought we'd do a show on the root cause of riots. And that's what we're going to try to get to today. Because we have some interesting thoughts between the two of us, me being a radical capitalist and him being the conspiracy theorist. We got a little bit to talk about today, so we hope you stick around. And if you do, we encourage it. We encourage you to share this video. I mean, a lot of people say, you know, like and subscribe and all that. We'd love that, but we'd rather you share the video and then hopefully get to know us. Because we're just two guys that sit around and drink beer and drink scotch and, you know, have a good time, smoke cigars, we enjoy our lives. You know, a lot of people out there are out there in the streets protesting something.
We're not going to get out of this life alive, so we might as well enjoy it.
Enjoy it. You get one. So enjoy the life. So today we're going to try to explain at least our views on what causes riots. What's the root cause of riots? And
are you going to do your intro first?
No, we're going to get to that. That'll be part of it. Don't worry. We'll get there. Just hang in there.
Okay.
I know you're a little itchy over there, and I don't blame you because we're all, as they say, we're all in this together. It's hot here in Central Florida, and we just had a major storm go through last night, and we're cleaning up all the
I had to shut my phone off. Every time we turn around, be afraid of this, be afraid of that.
So if we cough and, you know, kind of want to puke every once in a while, we'll blame it on the weather and not what we see in the news and all that. By the way, you know, let's get started real quick and say, if you're watching the news, you're probably getting the idea that the riots have started here in America and that we're probably the worst country in the world because the rest of the world, it's just fine and dandy. But if you looked at some of our earlier videos that we did with another channel we had a channel called Gale Force Creations.
Right.
And maybe we'll repost some of those videos on our new channel here, the Sneakee Bastards. But we predicted the riots in the streets in America a year and a half ago. 18 months ago, we said that the riots were coming to America. Now, you're probably like, what do you mean the riots are coming to America? Well, the rest of the world has been on fire for the last year and a half, if not 2 years. They've been rioting in France since a good 18 months ago.
Oh, yes, at least 18 months.
Just look it up. It's called Yellow Vest Protest. Just look that up. And we did a couple shows on the Yellow Vest Protest.
Several of them.
And we said, look, this is coming to America soon. And you're probably surprised saying, what do you mean the rest of the world? Well, there's been protests in Chile. There's been, you know, we know protests going on in Hong Kong. Protests going on in, again,
Brazil,
France.
Bolivia.
Brazil. Yeah, look, the rest of the world has been on fire a lot longer than America. And we told you 18 months ago, be prepared in the big cities. The riots are coming. So what we're going to try to do today is kind of maybe explain from our point of view what we think is the root cause of riots. And the one question that I've always come up, you know, that came to me this morning as we were discussing our pre-show ideas on what we're going to talk about. You see right now, open up any news channel and you can see the protest going on. Yeah, I guess we got to keep time. And we see the protests going on. And my question has always been, when was the last time you saw rich people rioting in the streets or protesting? I'm trying to recall the last time I seen a group of rich people getting out there and protesting that something's not right in this world.
Rich people's children, I've seen them.
Yeah, the rich. Well, that's because they don't have to work for a living, and they feel that's whatever white guilt is, that they get out in the streets and show that they're not racist by being in the protest.
And one that's easy to prove is Randolph Hearst's daughter with the Symbionese Liberation Army back in the 60s.
That's true. And then she came around. Well, she didn't come around. She was brainwashed into thinking that the world was against them. But she was, even though she was rich, she's not the rich. So, again, I say, when's the last time the rich have protested? The rich don't have to protest.
A lot of times,
Privileged.
privileged class like Randolph Hearst's daughter or some of these other people that have never had to even work to get an allowance. I guess you would call them what? Trust babies?
Yeah. Kind of like most of your mayors that are in charge of most of these democratic cities.
And some governors like Cuomo.
Yeah, they grew up, not having to actually work for a living.
They were born on third base and thought they hit a home run.
Yep. So, we have rioters out there, and there's been news reports from some news agencies that have asked why they're rioting, and most of them have no idea why they're rioting, but they come up like, we're just trying to get our stuff. They've been forgotten. And they see all these businesses that have all these products that they're selling, and we see looting going on. And looting, like in Minnesota, they're not looting, big businesses. They're looting local mom and pop stores and taking whatever they can, saying it's about time they got their fair share.
And the majority of the ones they're looting and burning are owned by black people, but their black lives don't matter.
Yeah. So we're trying to think of what is the root cause of rioting, and it is economics. Hey, that's our good buddy Sasha there trying to get into the picture. Say hi, Sasha.
Well, I think she's cords bothering her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on by. You can get by now. So, hey. You guys settle down. We don't want any peaceful demonstrations around here, okay? So the root cause I have come down to is economics.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's not because they're being beat up by the police, even though we're not saying that doesn't happen. The state is a terrible thing, and as we said, around the rest of the world with the protest, do some research and find out where protests are going around the world, and you'll notice the protest is always against the government. Why do you think that is? Why would they protest against the government?
Because they believe the government can solve all their problems when the government is in bed with the banks creating the problems.
There we go. It all comes down to economics. And America is unique in the world in which we're one of the first countries that had a social contract to do away with violence. Okay? And it was a unique concept. Before the United States was created, pretty much who ran the countries? It's either a king or the church. Okay?
Yes.
And you went by their rules, and if you didn't obey their rules, they came down on you pretty hard. That's why they had big
debtors'
armies.
prison and stuff like that.
Yeah. And America was the first country who said, well, we want to do away with the initiation of violence. And that's the whole idea behind our social contract and the Constitution of the United States. And just real quick here, I want to read the preamble of the Constitution of the United States, okay? You can look this up online. I'm pretty sure you can still find it on Google. It's called the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. I know it's probably a new concept to a lot of people out there because they're not taught this in school.
It's not a living document,
Okay.
It's a document.
Yeah, this is a contract, and contracts aren't living. Find that out with your bank and your mortgage. Go to them and tell them you want to change your living contract, okay? And
They'll look at you like you're
see
funny.
how the bank works. But that's what the Constitution. It's not a living document. It is a contract, okay? And I'm just going to read. This is the preamble. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole Constitution, even though this is the whole Constitution. Pretty simple. Tells you how to run a government. Okay. So here is the preamble to the Constitution. We the people, all of us, we of the
Men,
United
women,
States.
white, black.
It doesn't say white, doesn't say black, doesn't say men, doesn't say women. It says we the people. Okay? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, that means, peaceful, provide for the common defense, great army, promote the general welfare, okay, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. All right, posterity means future generations. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And what this contract says is that we, the people, have given up our ability to initiate force against one another. In other words, the government was created, our government was created to protect
Everybody.
bastard number 2 from bastard number 1, and also to protect me, JD, from Gail. Okay? If me and him are neighbors and we have some kind of conflict between the two of us, maybe land, saying I'm taking over part of his land and he says that's not right, we give up the right for me to initiate force against him to solve our problems. In other words, if we have a problem between the two of us, we don't go out there and do a duel.
No,
what we do is
we don't create the Hatfields and McCoys.
that's it. We gave up our ability to initiate force, and the government, we use the government as the arbitrator. The government is the judge. In other words, if there's a conflict between the two of us and we can't settle it between ourselves, we ask the government to come in and be the final arbitrator. Who is right, who is wrong, okay? And that's how the United States was formed. In other words, we give up our right to initiate force against another individual, and we give the ultimate force to government to solve our problems. And
That's to take personal passion and vindictiveness and reckoning and stuff like that
and this is where laws come in.
to create a saner
Peaceful
tranquility. It's a way of negotiating a peace. And this is what a lot of people, what you're trying to say is that this is to keep us from doing, in the heat of passion, because someone's dog came and they dumped on your yard and they didn't pick it up, you're not going to go over there and knock your neighbor's windows out.
Exactly.
I mean, that's putting it down to the simple, basic,
Yeah.
day-to-day thing.
This is the only time we ask the government to get involved in our lives, is when there is a conflict between two individuals. We give up our right to initiate force, and we give that right to the government to find out who is correct in this.
And
that's why we have laws.
And they're only supposed to create basic guidelines.
Yeah.
So that you don't do out there and make shoddy workmanship so that the house that you built on the side collapses on a family.
Yes.
It's basic. No, not right down to what kind of doorbell you use. Basic guidelines. Not right down to what kind of shoelaces you wear.
Yeah.
Basic guidelines.
As few laws as possible.
Correct.
Because the more laws you make,
You create a bureaucracy.
and you create more criminals. If you want more criminals, you create more laws. And this is how we have finally, and we can see this happening in the streets of Minneapolis, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. There are now so many laws that anybody can be arrested for any purpose.
Correct.
So now we come down to what is the root cause that we see happening in today's streets. And it is economics. It all comes down to economics. And that is why the founding fathers did their best to separate not only church from state, because we knew that, some churches are radical, and they wanted the government not to have anything to do with churches. In other words, churches shouldn't create law.
They shouldn't create law and run the country.
And they also did their best to separate economics from the state.
Correct.
The state shouldn't tell you what job you can hold, what job you can't hold. The state shouldn't say what you should get paid, what you shouldn't get paid. In other words, they separated as much as they could economics and state.
On a merit-based system. See, this is what most people, this is what's gone the wayside. I'm not trying to run over you, but it is on a merit-based system. Like the Bible, and we're not trying to be religious, but that's the thing that's been set there for thousands of years. And it basically says, let he who does not work shall not eat. That's until LBJ created the Great Society.
Exactly. And that's why in the Constitution, this little thing right here, money was mentioned. Okay? There's a difference between currency and money, and that's one of our other shows you can watch on our channel here. If you get a chance, check it out. There's a difference between currency and money. And when our country was created and the Constitution was written, in there they told us what money is.
And there's a reason for that.
And there's a reason for it. And money was gold and silver. Because
Correct.
gold and silver is money. What you have in your wallet with the debit card or the pieces of paper, that's currency.
Correct.
Okay? And that can be created out of thin air, which is done all the time. And this is what has caused the riots. Since we have gone off money and we now use currency for our exchange, the world has gotten, our country has gotten worse and worse and worse. And this is happening all throughout the world. Everybody is fighting the governments, not because government is inherently bad, which it is. You know, what did our founders say? That if all men were angels, we wouldn't need government?
Correct.
And we're not all angels. But the governments have so corrupted currency and money that now it's almost worthless. As a matter of fact, there was an article I was reading from Jim Cramer just the other day. He said these bailouts have created the worst transfer of wealth in history.
The biggest, not the worst, not only the worst,
The biggest.
but the largest in history.
The Fed is dumping so much currency into the market, it's not getting to the people on the streets. The currency first goes into the stock market. And as Mike Maloney has said, you need to check out some of his videos. Mike Maloney, please check him out when you get a chance. The first people who get this new currency are the only ones who make anything of it, who gain anything from it. So as we're dumping all this money into the stock market, it is only the rich who receive any value of this currency being created. And then once it kind of flows downhill, the trickle they say or whatever, by the time it gets to the people on the street, the currency is worthless. And this is why people are rioting. And they're rioting because they feel they don't get their, as I've always said, their fair share. And now they think they can get their fair share by breaking into buildings, by creating violence and stealing other people's property.
Free stuff.
And this is all caused by government interaction in the economy and by bad laws. And one of the worst laws you can have is create a law to where a crime is committed when there is no victim. Victimless crimes are the worst kind of crime, not the worst kind. Victimless crimes shouldn't exist. In other words, if I buy dope from somebody, that's a victimless crime. Nobody's getting hurt except me, possibly, if I do too many drugs.
Correct.
Okay? And we have our jails filled with people who have done victimless crimes. If there's no victim, how can there be a crime? Well, they say it's a crime against the state, and the state is everybody. Well, I don't think that some guy buying marijuana affects me in any way if I don't allow it. And this is what's happening. We have so many crimes out there, so many laws on the book that anybody can be thrown in jail for anything. Right now, we're breaking probably 3 or 4 federal laws sitting here talking. Who knows how many state laws we're breaking or county laws? You know, the county could come in right now and find some law we're breaking, even though we're sitting here smoking and drinking. They'll find some law that we're breaking. There are so many laws that anybody can be thrown in jail. That's why we incarcerate so many people in this world. And this is why people are protesting, because you can be thrown in jail for any crime. And I just want to bring up George Floyd real quick here on the crime he committed. The crime he committed was when this virus came around, this sickness that's affecting our country and the world, he was thrown out of a job, as most Americans were. Half of America is out of a job because we're in this lockdown. They have lost the ability to feed their family. So what did George do? He went to his fine little printer there and decided to create some currency, which is nothing but paper and ink. Okay?
Correct.
And then he decided to go to the store before the ink was dry and tried to buy something with this fake currency. And this is why he was arrested for counterfeiting. Okay? Imagine what the Fed thinks. You know, the Fed's looking the other way. This guy is counterfeiting currency? Well, that's what the Fed does every day and has been doing for the last 8 months, is creating more and more counterfeit currency. They have corrupted economics, and this is why people are rioting, is because they feel they have no ability to feed their family. You can't create a job when you're in lockdown, created by the government. Try to open a business in America. It will take you 2 or 3 weeks to go through all the licensings you have to do, you know, and all the inspections and the permits you need to open a business. You know, it's hard to feed your family if you can't create your own business. And the founding fathers, when they started this great country of ours, you know what our first motto was on the coins? It wasn't "In God We Trust."
That was the 1950s, actually.
The first motto they had on American coins was "Mind your business." In other words, if somebody is doing something and it doesn't affect you, stay out of their business. You have no right to be in their business if it doesn't affect you or your friends or family. And that was the whole idea of America. It's like Thomas Jefferson said, the government should stay out of taking from the mouths of people the bread that they create.
Correct.
You know, it's like you're here in America, you're free to do what you want, to pursue your happiness. Well, we have done away with that since 1913 when we started the IRS. The government now is involved in every part of your life. Can you imagine, is there any business you can open without having to get permission from the government?
In most states, and I hate to start this, but the thing that really frosts my bacon. Okay, I'm retired, so that tells you that I'm over 65. In my lifetime on this spinning rock we call Earth, I have never, ever heard of some little girl in her driveway selling lemonade, anyone that got sick or died. Because there's a local statute. They'll come out and threaten the parents to take their home away if they don't stop having little girls sell lemonade. Oh, wait a minute. That would be teaching capitalism. We can't have capitalism.
Oh, no. And it's funny because capitalism is being blamed for all this. And I would have to agree because there's no true capitalists out there. There are very few true capitalists. And a true capitalist would not get involved with the government. But what do we have with big business? Their whole business, they have more...
they're in business to be in business.
Yeah, they have more... what do you call the...
loopholes?
No, the people that go up to Washington and try to...
those
create laws.
Oh, you talk about those people who go up there that Obama was going to do away with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that term? I can't recall.
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists, that's it. I knew it started with an L. I kept wanting to say looters, which would be the correct term.
Yes.
You know, if you're a lobbyist, you're a looter. And matter of fact, the biggest looter of all the 535 people that sit in Washington, D.C. and create our laws, they have got it down to a science of looting from the American people. And they're looting every time you cash that $1,200 check you get from the government, you're a conspiracy to loot the rest of your neighbors. But I would say, if they give you the $1,200, take it because it's your money. So grab it while you can. But the looting has started in Washington, and now is going downhill, and now you see the people in the streets looting to get their fair share. And it's not, even though we can say it started with the local police departments and the local governments and the states, it starts at Washington. And Washington started the looting, and now it's just going downhill. There's a great quote from Neil Peart, my man from Rush, which I have to put in there, that the men from high places must be the ones who start. And it's the people that rule us, or think they rule us, have to come to terms and find out that they have done a terrible job for the last 100 years, and it's now we need somebody up in Washington to show us the light. And they need to get economics out of Washington. We need to allow these poor communities to start business on their own. You should be able to start a business in hours instead of days and weeks. And let people create wealth
Just like
in their neighborhoods.
just like Nicaragua when they
That's it.
set up the
You know,
property.
you can have some guidelines, but we don't need all these rules and regulations. There's so many rules and regulations, you can't do a damn thing now to feed your family.
Are you
And
talking?
now we have to rely on the government to be fed.
You're not trying to say they should lead by example, are you?
They should lead by example. You know, I just wonder, how many businesses go into business and now are failing and have to do bankruptcy because of what the government does. I want to know how many politicians have gone bankrupt once they have left office. If you notice, most politicians, and especially mayors of big cities and governors, they always seem to leave office a hell of a lot richer than when they went in. And I don't see many of them going bankrupt.
Well, here's a question on the same subject you're at there. So they shut down half of the nation's economy.
Yeah.
How many government workers,
Were affected.
even if they were affected,
Well,
didn't receive a paycheck?
this is true.
Didn't continue to have their
rest
health
of their
care?
lives.
Didn't have any of these things. So, yeah.
So just a reminder, when you get a chance and you're sitting there and watching these nifty kitten videos on Facebook and other social media, just do a little research and find out if the rest of the world is on fire, and you will find out that there are protests all over the world. And again, as we predicted 18 months ago, they were coming to a city near you. They are here. All right, so hang on. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But we'll find out, because now Trump is getting heat for wanting to bring tranquility. Again, I read it from the Constitution that our government is to provide tranquility for its citizens. And what we have here, and some people are afraid to use the word, and of course it will probably get dinged for using this word, but there is an insurrection going on with the rule of law. And again, there are so many laws, we don't know which law to obey anymore. Matter of fact, there are so many laws that contradict other laws that it's a mess.
It's how they decide to apply it today.
That's it. So, I think I'm going to get to how maybe we can quell this insurrection that's going on before Trump goes overboard and has the army come in and put a stop to this insurrection that is going on. It isn't an insurrection against government, bad government. I'm not anti-government, I'm anti-bad government. But if you want to stop this real quick, you need to get rid of victimless crimes. Do away with victimless crimes, prostitution, make that legal, drugs, make it legal. Do away with victimless crimes. Do away with occupational licensing. Okay, that's another thing. Why should you need a license to cut hair? If you're good at cutting hair, why do you need to prove it to the state that you're... Are they protecting you in some way for a bad haircut? Come on. Do away with occupational licensing. Occupational license does nothing. There are doctors who get licensed that still do bad surgery.
More people are killed by doctors, and I've never done any drugs in my life. Okay, just alcohol and tobacco. But probably 10 times more people die because of mistakes in hospitals and by doctors
Yep.
than die from street drugs.
This is true. So just because you have a license doesn't mean you're good at it. I see so many people on the streets. I'm afraid to drive sometimes because I see so many bad drivers. But they have a license to drive. Just because you have a license to drive doesn't mean you're good at it. Just because you have a license to fly doesn't mean you're good at it. Just because you have a license to cut hair doesn't mean you're good at it. So why do we have licensing? I'll tell you why. And this is the example that happened in Milwaukee. A 77-year-old barber during the lockdown. He got to the point to where he couldn't get the government to help him feed his family, so he wanted to open up his barber shop. First they sent the cops in there and said, no, you're on lockdown. You can't have your business open. You can't do it. They sent the cops there. Every time he tried to open up, they sent the cops there. He finally went to the Supreme Court and said, look, I want to open up my business. But the governor wouldn't let him open his business because of the lockdown. Well, the Supreme Court of Michigan said, no, he has every right to open his business. You know?
Right.
So what did the governor do?
Took away his license.
Took away his license.
Wow.
He doesn't have a license, so now you can't practice what he did to feed his family just because of a piece of paper. They got to him because of that damn piece of paper with the license. You need to do away with occupational license. It doesn't help in any way.
There was a poet and a writer. His name was Henry David Thoreau. And one of his greatest things is it's called self-reliance. We're no longer self-reliant. Self-reliant means, hey, if you want to keep cutting hair, you do good haircuts or nobody's coming back.
That's it.
You're being self-reliant.
I don't know many businesses who want to kill their
customers.
Yeah. So, we're getting down to the crux of this video. And at the beginning of the video, we showed you a quote from Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, excuse me, because I got to lean over here because I wasn't equipped today. But here is the quote from Henry Ford. And this, again, we believe is the root of all riots. So this is what Henry Ford had to say. Henry Ford said, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." That was Henry Ford in 1922. And what he meant by this is the banking system and the economy and taking money out of the economy. We don't use money anymore. There's not a country on this earth that uses money. We all use currency. And currency is just nothing but an IOU. Piece of paper. Anybody can make it. George Floyd made it. But he got caught making it. He was thrown, lost his life because he was trying to feed his family. But the Fed counterfeits every day. Banks do it every day. Right now, we used to be what's called on a reserve system, monetary reserve system, where the banks had to have so much cash on hand,
To loan against.
to loan. They've done away with that back in March. The banks no longer have to have any currency on hand. In other words, you go rob a bank, forget it. There's probably no currency there. If you go to try to cash a check, if it's a small amount, you might be able to get some cash out of it. But the banks create money every time they make a loan. If you go into a bank to get a mortgage and they give you the mortgage,
It's no longer a fractional reserve.
they don't take money out of their vault and give it to you to buy something. They just go on the computer and put in how much money they're going to loan you, and then they get that interest from you. You have to pay it back in currency, even though they didn't have to have the currency to loan you. They just went on the computer and said, yeah, we loaned you this much money. Now give us some of that currency we loaned you. Even though you didn't actually receive currency, you just received
Now,
something in your
since there is
account.
no reserve, if they loaned you $100,000, they just made $100,000 plus the interest. We're coming up on 40 minutes.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to get to the end here. So the whole crux about riots is the banking system and not using real money anymore. We don't use real money. And again, if you look in the Constitution, you'll find out that The founding fathers knew this would be a problem. That's why they specifically said in the Constitution, gold and silver was money, not paper. Okay? And now banks create money out of thin air. The Federal Reserve creates money out of the thin air. And the only people who receive any value from this is the first people who get it, and that's the rich people. The currency is flowing into the stock market, which the rich people are making money, and by the time it gets to you, it's worthless. And this is why people are rioting, because they can't feed their family. They can't create more wealth. We don't create wealth anymore in this country.
And before we leave, here's something, and I want you to think on this. What's the difference between $100 billion and $1 trillion?
A couple of zeros
1 0 on a computer.
on a computer. Currency is now created out of thin air. Okay? And again, we want to leave you with this thought, that when was the last time rich people have protested in the streets?
Never.
I'm not saying anything bad about rich people. I'm saying bad things about central banks and banks in general.
And corrupt politicians that created the system where they can do that.
And that's it. And the biggest looters are the ones in Washington, D.C. And say bye to the dollar. Pretty soon the dollar is going bye-bye. And buy crypto.
Absolutely. Gold, silver, and crypto. If you don't buy gold, silver, and crypto, eventually the free stuff isn't even going to be worth.
Yeah.
It's not even money it's printed. It's
Yeah.
digital zeros.
Just zeros, yeah. So if you made it this far, we appreciate it. If you would, give us a like and a subscribe down there. It would really appreciate it.
Make sure and share
Share, that's
and
the main
comments.
thing.
We love comments.
Yeah. So let us think what you think is the root cause of riots, and we'll leave you with that, and we'll have another video up very shortly, everybody. Thank you again for watching. I'm Sneakee Bastard 1.
I'm Sneakee Bastard 2.
And we'll see you on the other side, and we'll again leave you with a quote from Henry Ford. And he knew it, and now maybe you know it. And you gotta love the wildlife around here.
Yeah, buddy.
That could be food in the future. See you, everybody.